So I just wanted to do an overview of the toilet partition library available for Microvellum. So if we go to our draw menu, we go to our draw products, we're going to use this master partition product, and we can place that at a selected point. And we'll just stick it on the screen. So now that we're in the product, we have the option to configure how this is constructed. So we've added some options here for floor mounted, ceiling hung, or floor to ceiling. So those three construction styles. And we can enter a height, a depth, floor clearance for how far the door is above the floor, and then specify how many openings, and that'll just adjust the width. And so we'll set our width to what we need it to be, and then you can enter your opening center lines, so the center lines of the toilet flanges, and enter where those are going to be located. For our finished end conditions, we can specify whether there's an end panel on one or both of the ends. So we'll say there's a left finished ends, and we can have the option to extend those panels down to the floor or have them floating up like the doors and divisions. There's some options here for different amounts that we're deducting for gaps and channels, whether we're radiusing around the corners. So if it's a phenolic or a solid polymer panel, then we can put a corner radius on there. We can put channels top and bottom. By default, it's mounted with channels on all areas where it connects to the floor. Each of those panels has the option for a shower condition or toilet partition, and some different options there. And then for our openings, so we have 4 openings that we've specified here. We can specify the division depth, so if we want to change the depth of one of those divisions, then we can do that individually, or we can do all of them together as the overall depth. Then we have the option for those divisions or those openings to be either toilet or shower partitions. We can specify which way the swing of the door, in or out, and then how those panels are running. So you have the same options for all the different controls. Then we have some options here for drawing this item as well. So we have some dimensions for our walls here, locations for our dimensions and things. So really automating the whole design process for those items. We can specify which dimensions we want to include, how we want to draw those items. Then we can specify our doors here. So we've got our door clearance, so how far under our doors. We've got our default door opening width, so it's going to calculate an opening width based on the center lines and things, but that's kind of what it's targeting there. We have our gaps for left and rights, tops and bottoms for those items, which gives us our door sizes. We have flush doors. There is an option to do a half lap door as well, but we're just going to go with the flush doors here. For the channels, we have different channels that we can use for those, and then we can also specify different materials, either right here, changing the individual part materials from here, or we can set up different what we call specification groups. And so we could have a phenolic or a melamine or a laminate spec group already set up, or we can assign those materials on a job-by-job basis as well. For our hardware options, right now we've just got some specific hardware that's set up in there, but we can specify the location for where those hinges are, what the offsets are, handles, if we're using feet. We've set the feet to none here, but if we set those to different conditions, we can do those as well. And then there are some other options for the product as we go through. So when we go and draw that out, we can see that product is drawn as we go there. Because this has a finished end, it's drawn with the walls and things on there. We've got our panel there for the opening condition. You can see it's placed our dimensions on there as well. If we go back to a top view, you can see there's where our dimensions are located. We can go back and adjust these openings. So by default, it's calculating what those openings are going to be based on the toilet center lines. But if we want to, we can always adjust those. We can adjust based on internal openings as well as front openings. So if we say internal openings, we'll just make all 4 of those equal if we want, and it'll adjust accordingly. And we can do the same thing for the fronts as well. So if we wanted to, if we could adjust and maybe make these a little bigger, and we can adjust our door sizes to suit and we just need to specify where the variance is going to be taken up. So if we say we're going to take it out of, maybe we'll make all of the individual nibs, as we call them, the panels in between, if we want to make all those smaller in order to do that, or all equal, then we can use a calculator to do that as well. Now, if we did adjust those openings and those panels so that they were no longer going to work, that they were off of the panel is how it's set up right now, then we would get a warning there that would say those dimensions don't work together as well. So that gives us our plan view, our layout, our drawing. We can also create an elevation view here. So if we go to our 2D drawings, we can say 2D wall elevation and grab that. And we can specify where we want to place that wall elevation. And so that'll create our elevation view. And all these views are customizable. We can specify what dimensions we want to include and things on there as well. But we can see we've got some dimensions for panels. These are just 2D AutoCAD lines. So if we wanted to add additional dimensions or notes, we could do that, or we could set up the library so that it does whatever we need automatically as well. We can go back and change any of these prompts as well. So if we wanted to say, oh, we change this one to a floor mounted condition instead, we can adjust that, and it'll change our 2D and our 3D drawings accordingly. And so we've now got a head rail across on the top, and that's going to cut list a piece of aluminum head rail for that. And we can do the same thing again from our 3D view. If we want to change anything, we can do that from either. And so if we go here to floor to ceiling, then we can change that to remove the head rail and go with a full height panel option as well. And so with that, we can create our views for those. We can actually render this out as well. So if we wanted to go to a perspective view here, and we'll just set up a view that we want to render, and then we can render that out and get a photorealistic rendering of that that particular elevation as well. So if we wanted to change that, show that to the customer, maybe the customer wants to come back and change to a different condition, we can just change that and render it again. Now, once we have that ready to go, we can create a cut list for those items. Of course, we could go take this, put it on a title block, and use our submittal drawing for that as well. But then we can go ahead and create our cut list for these items here. So we can say create new drawing, our work order for that drawing, and process that out. And so we can call it whatever we need. And so that'll generate a list of all the parts that are included in this particular run. Now, if we had multiple partitions, we could certainly process them all together, and we would have all the parts together for the project. At this point, this is where we would send it out for production if we were going in that direction and going to create CNC programs. But if all we want is a cut list, we can just go to our reports and say print reports, and we can gather a number of different reports that we might want to show. So if it's just a cutting list that we're looking for, then we can see those parts, what they have on them, edge banding for those parts if they're, in this case, they're solid phenolic, but if they were a laminate or a melamine product, then we would see the edge banding on those parts as well. We can get a product detail report that shows all the different components that make up that item, so some details about the overall size as well as our parts and pieces that make that up, along with the hardware items that are included in that product.